Working as an FBI special agent was my dream job. My whistleblowing was apolitical and in the spirit of upholding my oath. Nonetheless, the FBI cynically elected to close ranks and attack the messenger.
The FBI will crush you. This government will crush you and your family if you try to expose the truth about things that they are doing that are wrong. We are all examples of that.
Joining us now are Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle. Thanks for joining us, fellas.
FBI whistleblowers Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle both join us now. Gentlemen, so glad to have you on the program. Thank you for your testimony.
We need more folks like you, and I'm sure more people are going to be from your background are going to be giving you guys more intel as you're sharing that with the rest of us. We can kind of see that this is becoming normal for them to be held accountable, because I think especially an institution that we pay their salaries, they need to be held accountable.
I think a lot of people do share our beliefs and convictions. I think they just aren't at the point that Steve and I and others have gotten to. They're too afraid.
Thank you so much for being a guest here on PBD Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
How big is that bloody flag that Steve's got? It's a stone wall of his house. Lots of love, guys. Thanks very much for joining us.
Steve Friend, Garrett O'Boyle. Thank you for being with us this morning. More importantly, thank you for speaking out. We appreciate it.
You're in the information age, but facts are in short supply. Reject the noise, ask bold questions, and pursue the truth with FBI whistleblowers and founding suspendables Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend. This is the American Radicals Podcast.
It is the American Radicals Podcast on a Saturday. It's 10:30 Eastern Time. We're grateful to have you with us. We are streaming live on Rumble. Rumble.com/AmRadPod is where you can find us every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday in this time slot. If you have not already, smash the like up and give us a follow, because we're less than 10 follows away from 4,000 total followers of the American Radicals Podcast channel. So trying to get there in the last couple of days of 2024. Do what you can to sort of support us and share the word wide. If you listen to the audio format on Spotify, iHeart, you can make sure to subscribe there so you get the updated audio format of the show. Give us a 5-star rating so we can tell the algorithm to share the show with more of an audience. We're continuing to grow there too. It's actually been pretty good. We're happy with the results we're getting on the audio. Thank you guys there for who's listening. Today is the finale of our 3-part series where we're doing the retrospective, looking back on all the big news stories at the time as they were reported and determining if they actually were, in the end of things, an actual big news story. This is going to be a little bit more current because it's the last 4 months of the year: September, October, November, December. We're going to get to all of them. We're kind of video heavy today too, which is fun. And it also includes more election-based stuff. So excited to get to all that, so much more. We've got Garrett in the seat. Good to see you, my friend. Ready to round out 2024 news stories with you at my side.
You know, Steve, I don't remember what happened 4 days ago. So the last 4 months, I'm sure I'm going to be like, oh, what happened? I don't remember that. So
it is amazing, the attention span for just even people who are in tune with what goes on in the news, like you and I sort of do. I mean, we kind of have to be for our job, I guess, as co-host of the podcast here. And I've been really on task, on point, recording meticulously all these stories as they've come through. And even going back to the list, I mean, I've just scratched my head like, I can't believe that happened. I totally forgot about that. It's a nonstop fire hydrant of content that's coming at you every single day. And particularly in the lead up to a presidential election, everybody's just so focused on that. I did my best to sort of try to capture things that were outside of it that impacted people, because I think that's important. That's when they try to slip the big ones past the goalie, when everyone is looking the other direction. And we've got some ones in December, particularly because it's like the Friday news dump times 10 with all the holiday season. And on top of that, all the people who are super excited about an election outcome. So some big stuff did happen in December, and I'm not sure even people in our audience caught on to all of it. So we're gonna get to all of it. Let's start in September. And again, like this one was like, oh yeah, I forgot that happened, because there was an aide to, I'm sorry, I got the wrong one. We'll get to that in 1 minute, but this was Kathy.
Even I remember that one, Steve.
The Kathy Hochul and Andrew Cuomo aide was indicted as a Chinese spy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, New York is arguably one of our most important states. This was a individual who was there, and Kathy Hochul tried to get up there and pretend like she was an integral part of the investigation, reporting it to the authorities. Meanwhile, she's had a communist, an activist on behalf of the Chinese government, working in her staff. She inherited her from Andrew Cuomo, but I think that the infiltration into a very important state government at a high level is something that should make everyone concerned. I mean, it's up there with like the Chinese spy balloon that everyone seems to forget about.
If it wasn't for Stretch and Gretchen Whitmer, Kathy Hochul would be the worst white liberal woman in government or in state government in the country, in my humble opinion. But yeah, I love the gaslighting about Donald Trump and other quote unquote conservative people with their ties to Russia and Russia collusion and all these things we've heard for years and years. It's always the boogeyman Russia. But then you look here, you got a Chinese spy. You look at what's his name, Swalwell, but wasn't that
Fang
debunked?
Fang and Eric
Fang
Swalwell.
Fang, yeah. So it's interesting. Or my favorite, and I'm getting ahead. Actually, yeah, it's still 2024, so I'm jumping ahead in the timeline a little bit. But just within the last few days, the National Archives released these photos of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden with Xi Jinping and some other Chinese business associates of Hunter.
Look, he
And
was not involved with his son's
oh,
baby.
no, he told us, and I mean, it's Joe Biden, so you got to take the man at his word. And he told us when he was a little bit more coherent than he is today that he was never involved. But yeah, sure, it's the Russians that we need to worry about, Steve, and Donald Trump and his collusion with the Russians. Okay, sure, yeah,
And definitely because of New York's significance as a geographic area, and you have New York City there being arguably our most important city, you
it's the
take
greatest
the
city in the world, Steve. At least according to Hamilton, the play, my favorite Broadway uh, show.
and everyone who lives there, just wait 5 minutes and they'll tell you about it.
Yes.
They allow the Chinese police station to operate
Oh,
there,
yeah.
to repatriate their own citizens, throw bags over their heads and bring them back to China.
I think I saw one of the FBI's tweets of a press release recently about somebody being indicted over that police station,
Yeah,
and
you're
it's like,
welcome.
yeah,
I
oh,
shared that.
thank you, thanks FBI for indicting a freaking Chinese police station person in America. Yeah, great, thank you.
All right, so let's talk about another fail, particularly the political failings that were attached to it from our ex-girlfriend over at the FBI. Even though it was a local matter, there's no question that the federales were involved in that, and that was the Nashville Shooter
Oh
Manifesto,
man,
which was
yes,
finally released over a year after the shooting of 3 small children, 3 school employees at Covenant Christian in Nashville. They went after, when I say they, the city of Nashville went after the police officers who released a couple of the pages to Steven Crowder. They tried to do a mole hunt for those people. Meanwhile, we were told that this manifesto was super dangerous. It could not be shared because it was a blueprint for Armageddon. Don't you
yeah.
know? Like if we shared this information, it's worse than the Anarchist Cookbook. We finally get it, and it is just the crazy screamings of a mentally disturbed woman who thought she was a dude who was really uber concerned about white supremacy and trans rights issues. So I wonder what was the motivating factor of keeping that out of the hands of the public when she has no expectation of privacy since she's not alive anymore and there's no
Right.
prosecution. You can't say, well, we can't comment on an ongoing investigation of who.
Of who? Yeah, she's dead. So, or she wanted
Audrey
to be a he.
Hale. Audrey Hale.
She is dead, and yes, you nail it here. You touch on the expectation of privacy. So you combine that with the immense amount of public importance of a case like this, because people should know and they want to know. And I would say in an alleged land of the free, you have a right to know what's in that manuscript, in that manifesto. And manifestos have been released before. And look, there's this whole idea, I think that's even a website, like do not name them.org or something to that effect. Somebody, you can look this up in your search browser of choice and find it, but it's one of these law enforcement initiatives of don't name the shooter. I'm okay with that, but at the same time, from a freedom standpoint, from an investigative standpoint, from a how did we get to this point standpoint, I want to know. I'm a grown man. I have I'm able to have the intuition enough to mentally and spiritually and even physically protect myself from words written by some crazy person who hates Christians in their manifesto, and so I can read it. Do I want my daughter Gwen, who's 9, reading that? No. And as her dad, I will protect her from that. And but you know what I do want? When she's 17 and doing a research paper on the increase in trans shooters, she should have access to a manifesto like this, as should anyone. Because why not? Like you said, she's dead. We should be able to read this. And they fought, and when I say they, Nashville PD, FBI, DOJ fought tooth and nail about releasing this.
The judge did too.
Didn't they even, I don't know if it was an EC from the FBI or if it was from the judge, might have been a court document, and they went on and on and on about why they shouldn't release it.
They tried to pull on everything they could. This would be devastating to the parents of the children who were killed. For you to know the crazy ramblings of this individual, the justification behind it. Look, it had no evidentiary value because there was no prosecution. You can make a case of, look, we need to consider this as a society. Is there some sort of line of thinking that we need to be aware of? Could there be potential threats out there? But ultimately, the lie is the point. It didn't have anything in there that we didn't already know, because we know that these are mentally disturbed people doing it. And we could draw the conclusion to deduce that she went into a Christian school because she probably didn't like the Christians. It's not that hard of a leap to make. This would have been huge for transparency. But they, FBI and the Nashville PD, any sort of apparatchik of the federal government, would prefer, it's preferable to them for us to know, we know you're lying to us. We know that you're never going to be transparent. Then they say, yeah, that's the point. Rather than opening this up, because they are so devoted to this spirit of the age, to this cult, to this LGBT rainbow kamikaze. That's their idol at this point, and they cannot allow it to come out that was the mitigating factor. That was the motivating factor behind the execution of 6 innocent people. Let's go to somebody who's not an innocent person, but in light of the recent developments, I guess he is, and that's Hunter Biden, who pled guilty to tax evasion. This was the whistleblower, the 2 IRS whistleblowers that came forward and testified about Hunter Biden's tax activities. He pled guilty. Remember, there was a whole thing where he was going to plead guilty and basically get immunity from all future prosecutions, and the judge said, no, that's not going to happen. But in this one, I guess the IRS whistleblowers were vindicated on that one, because he did wind up pleading guilty. And this is the son of the current president, who is now being convicted twice in 2024 of federal crimes. And then we'll go back to presidential politics, because we had the one and the only, and hopefully the final presidential debate in American history by mainstream legacy media between Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, which from my perspective did not go well for Donald Trump.
No.
And he was 3-on-1. I understand that. But all Kamala Harris had to do, they set the bar so low for her because of her word salads, that she just had to look like someone with a high double-digit IQ who was capable of standing up there. And she did it.
She did. Yep.
She exceeded that low hurdle, very much like Joe Biden did in 2020 at that lone debate that they did, that first debate.
For people who pay attention to politics, and they catch the clips and the gaffes and whatever over the years, and I would say going back to, at least for me, from when she was a senator, the perspective that she presented. So if you're a new viewer and this is all you see is this debate, you probably do walk away thinking like, yeah, you know what? I don't like that laugh, but she didn't do it a ton. So I think she could be the president. And besides, she's a black woman, or she's a woman of color, because, well, actually most people probably would assume she's black if they don't pay attention and don't know it. She's got more of an Indian heritage in her background than African-American. But that aside, Donald Trump, I agree with you. He came off very poorly, like he didn't prepare. And sure, it comes out, wow, it was 3-on-1. Okay, yeah, well, that's expected. So that's why you need to do better. You need to prepare more. But also, I don't know when it would have been, a couple months or maybe within a month or so, or 1 or 2 months of of that debate. This is, which I think people in our stratosphere probably already were leaning this way, saying we got to get rid of these legacy style debates. The media is very skewed one way. Even if you go on a place like Fox, they're not much better, quote unquote. Certainly, none of these people are partisan. But then you have, I think it was like in late October, maybe it was even early November. You have Vance and Trump going on Elon Musk. You even had Kamala going on Call Her Daddy and some of these other ones. That's got to be the wave of the future. And Joe Rogan has said it. He's said, I'll have these people on. Maybe not necessarily a debate moderation, but I could foresee someone like Joe Rogan or other people. You know, Sean Ryan had Trump and Vance on as well, and future director of the FBI, Kash Patel. And so some of these bigger podcasts are becoming more and more influential in the political sphere. And I think a lot of them would say that that's never what they intended, but they have this position where they're seeing the state of our country and seeing that it is important and does matter. So have these people on for a couple hours. And then maybe after you've had the leading candidates on, bring them all back on together and have a quasi debate long form that way. I think that would be so much better than this garbage we see. And then you start getting tweets with earrings that are alleged microphones, and it's like, come on, man, let's
What
move
is
on.
the point at its root? What is the point of a debate in the format where there's a moderator and there's the two participants in it? I think that it's sort of a encapsulation of a pressure test on a candidate. Can you be quick on your feet? Can you prepare for that? Because they do prepare. And they're given sort of a heads up of these are the sorts of things we're going to be talking about. Can you pivot? Can you make your case in this sort of contrived and arbitrary setting that we've set up for you? But it's really just a stress test. I think you achieve the exact same thing with the long form podcast like a Joe Rogan or a Sean Ryan, because they have to be prepared. They have to come off also as a real person, like not come off as, you actually have to be a real person. You can't just be a construct like Kamala Harris was, which is why all the criticism of Kamala Harris for not going on a Rogan when the invitation was there, that was probably really wise of her, because she would have come off far worse. It was more palatable to just be like, I don't want to do it. And people say, well, we know the real reason, than to actually show it. You know, what's it, the Mark Twain, like better to keep your mouth and be assumed an idiot than open it and reveal it to everyone that you are. Someone who's not an idiot and is actual suspendable and a buddy of yours and mine, who I want to make sure we throw this one up there. He went back to Congress, Marcus Allen, in his, I think he said it was his final service to the country.
Powerful stuff.
Powerful stuff. I wanted to play that because that actually did also happen in September. This is just a 1-minute clip, and you know, good luck. Well, I guess a good thing we're going to get your perspective at the end of the show, because I wouldn't hate to have you follow this one for your biblical worldview, Garrett. This is Marcus Allen giving his thoughts on his criticisms that he received from people within the FBI.
John Adams noted that the framework of our country was built for a moral and religious people and unfit for the governance of any other. James Madison notes the duty to honor God is precedent, both in order of time and degree of obligation, to the claims of civil society. Before any man can be considered as a member of civil society, he must be considered as a subject of the governor of the universe. I recently learned about comments made by Mr. Jeffrey Veltri suggesting I was delusional for believing in and seeking guidance from the Holy Spirit. Mr. Veltri currently serves as special agent in charge of the Miami field office, but at the time he was an executive at Security Division overseeing security clearance decisions. To Mr. Veltri, I say you can insult me, but you should not mock God. It is an insult to the infinite dignity of God, who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and it is bad for the health of your soul.
What else can you add to that?
Nothing. You know, I mean, this is, to me, this is my favorite story, quote unquote, of the year. You get a guy like Marcus Allen, who from the jump, as we knew, not even knowing Marcus, Steve, we knew that it was wrong. I remember when I first heard of an FBI analyst who was being represented by Judicial Watch, and I remember in our chats, who is this guy? Does anybody know this guy? And dude was like a ghost. And then fast forward, I don't know how long, so months at a minimum, it was months. And then we testify. And then now fast forward, over a year, let's see. 15, 16 months later, he testifies again and completely vindicated. And you can see it. You can see it and hear the struggle in his voice because there is no repairing what was done. Okay, the guy gets his clearance back. Okay, the guy gets his back pay. I don't know what the other terms of the settlement were, if there were any. That, for all I know, that might have been it. And then part of that deal, quote unquote deal, is you have to resign. Yes, we will give you your clearance back. Yes, we will give you your back pay, but you got to resign. That's the deal. A guy who's served his nation his whole adult life. I want to say between the Marine Corps, contracting, and then actual in the FBI, because I think he's an FBI contractor first. It's something like 15 to 18 years, something. I mean, his entire adult life, literally. And now just you get to go pack your stuff anyways, and you gotta move on. There's no repairing what was done. And then he nails it, and I'll just bring it up right now. I as he was saying it, I thought, what resonates here? 1 Corinthians chapter 1. Let's jump down to right here, verse 18. For the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing. So of course somebody like Jeffrey Veltri is going to say that Marcus is delusional. Of course. That is what the world is going to attack Christians with. If they're not going to attack them physically like Audrey Hale did, they will just attack them in this manner, calling us crazy, essentially. For the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and the discernment of the discerning I will thwart. Where is the one who is wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the debater of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? I could keep going. I mean, it's incredible. It's powerful stuff from the Apostle Paul here. But think of some of that. Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? Think of that when they tell you the science, or when they appeal to the authority of the FBI and say, he's a conspiracy theorist, and so he needs to have his clearance suspended, only to 27 months later be reinstated with his back pay, with a letter from the FBI. No apology, by the way, but a letter saying the security concerns have been appropriately mitigated. Screw you. Not even an apology. There's not enough dollars in the world that could make it right for Marcus for the wrong that they did. Yes, I'm happy that he got his back pay and is moving on to some degree, but also, like he said, and can you blame the guy that he viewed that testimony as his final act of public service, putting the guy through the crucible like they did. They removed the very type of person who should be serving this nation. It's an absolute travesty. And F them, dude. F all of them.
And part of the negotiation was, yes, we will not we will not admit it, but basically this is tantamount to an admission that we were wrong. But you're going to have to just go away.
Right.
That's what the takeaway from it is. And, he alluded to Jeffrey Veltri from his position at headquarters where he was mocking Marcus's faith. Another thing that Jeffrey Veltri did was go on his Facebook account and say a whole bunch of stuff about how he hated Donald Trump. And then he was promoted to head up the FBI Miami field office, which has responsibility for Mar-a-Lago. So Christopher Wray, Jennifer Moore, Paula Bate, executives within the FBI told Jeffrey Veltri, make sure you clean up your Facebook account before you take that post. And then they let him go take that post, which might explain why it's a running gun battle between Butler and Mar-a-Lago for the least reported stories ever.
Right. Yeah.
And that takes us to this story. Also in September, we had a second assassination attempt of Donald Trump. this guy, Ryan Ruth. We actually have him. He's in custody. He didn't get smoked because apparently the Secret Service agent missed from 5 feet away 6 rounds, which does not surprise me.
Nope.
And this was really, to me, Garrett, the first time that I thought that maybe incompetence doesn't necessarily explain everything. I'm loath to go down the conspiracy theory sort of rabbit hole, if you will, but you could attribute a lot of what happened in Butler to incompetence. The fact that there's resentment between the locals and the feds, because the feds wouldn't even come meet them and say, "Hey, look, screw those guys. I'm not going up on that roof. It's on them." And then there's no communication. They don't have the radio ability, so there's a slow and there's a lapse, and then there's somebody on the roof, and it takes a while to actually communicate it. You could actually see how that happens, right? But this one, 60 days later, and it's an unscheduled visit to a golf course that wasn't on the calendar at all. He would have no reason to be there. Did this guy Ruth just happen to say, "All right, I'm going to camp out at this golf course until I see Donald Trump," and it just happened to be 12 hours before he got there? Do they not have any sorts of advanced teams that regularly do things around the golf course that Donald Trump regularly plays golf at? That there's nothing there, and then he's able to elude them for a certain amount of time. Thank goodness that the locals apprehended him.
Yeah.
This is where I start going down to, okay, do you have operational security issues that are maybe on purpose?
Right.
And that's why we're never going to hear anything out of this unless we get to a demand of accountability and transparency on January 20th. Everything needs to be opened up at this point.
It has to be. That's I think that's one of the biggest pieces right now. And I don't know. I guess I don't hold my breath a ton on it because government's going to be government, and we know how thick the bureaucracy is. Actually, maybe we don't. Maybe it's even thicker than we think. But the transparency piece, that is how you force these unelected bureaucrats to flee like little cockroaches that they are. Is you turn the lights on and you show it all. And you release it all. Release the bad and the good. I guarantee you there's going to be more bad, because what in the actual F was going on there? We all think of how unprecedented this is. And we talked about it on the last year in review show with in July with the assassination attempt. Okay, you got a former president running for president again, nearly assassinated. And you hit the highlights. Both of us being cops, being in the FBI, being SWAT, we can see and understand how that happened, because it's hot up on this roof. Our comms don't work. We don't have comms in conjunction with the Secret Service. And then, you miss your shots, and it should have never gotten there. But I do chalk that one up to incompetence. There are some people out there who have never met a conspiracy theory that they don't like. And part of me, I always look into them enough to satisfy my own curiosity. There are some that I question. I'm pretty open about the JFK assassination. I'm with RFK on that one. I'm confident the government had a far larger role in that than they allow us to believe, which is why they don't release documents, even though they should have been released years ago. But then this happens in September. So you've got July already. Now you've got another assassination attempt. And that's when I start, okay, this, like you mentioned, an unscheduled golf outing, and this guy's just waiting in the palm trees. No. Okay. And then you start to see more coming out. What's with all the cell phones? What's with the business that he owns in Hawaii? What's with his connections to Ukraine? And he's been on news programs and social media beating the battle drums for Ukraine. And then you have these other potential connections to government agencies, and the dude doesn't really have any income. How is this all? What's going on here? It really stinks to high heaven to me. I'm not saying I'm buying all in every last conspiracy theory aspect of it, but I got a lot of questions here. And please put the questions to bed for me. The only way to do that is to release everything that they have on it. They have to.
It's the same people that withheld the Nashville Shooters Manifesto.
Right.
It's the same people who have told us that Stephen Paddock, the Vegas shooter, did so because he had some gambling losses.
Yeah.
Garrett, did you know that his father was on the FBI most wanted list, and he's one of the longest people on the list in the history of the FBI most wanted list? He escaped from custody too. I mean,
Please.
I need some accountability. I need some
answers here.
transparency on
Right,
this.
right.
Everything. It has to be opened up.
And then they'll gaslight you. They'll say that you're the crazy one. Well, just
I
give
went to
me
Wikipedia.
yeah, give me the information then, because I'm going on the information that is out there that has been pieced together. That's only open source, and you won't release the information. So, but I'm the one who's crazy. Okay.
Yeah. Again,
sure.
Stephen Paddock has no expectation of privacy. He's
Right,
dead.
He's dead.
So what are you protecting? It's the same thing as
And-
the JFK assassination.
This
I mean,
this is an important aspect of it, because think in a case like Stephen Paddock or Audrey Hale, from a legal perspective, for all you listening who may not know, when we say an expectation of privacy, that means for you and I, if the police came knocking on my door and said, "Hey, we need to come in," and I could tell them no, and they have to have a warrant, because I have an expectation of privacy in my home. If you're dead, that reasonable expectation of privacy no longer exists. And with us, for instance, take Stephen Paddock's cell phone or Audrey Hale's manifesto. When you die, so typically government will need a warrant, a search warrant, to look at your phone, to look at the contents of your phone, or to look at, even if your trunk is locked, if they want to go in there for some investigative reason without consent, they need to get a warrant to go in there. If you're dead, well, a car might not be a good example, because they can do inventory searches too. Now we're getting off the rails with legalese. But when you're dead, you don't have an expectation of privacy. So I can take your phone and download it. I don't need to get a warrant for it because you're dead. And yet here the government says, well, to protect the ongoing investigation. From what? We have a right to know these things. The Vegas shooting is another great example, along with the Audrey Hale one.
we're still in September, man.
Oh man, it's been a year.
It's been incredible. I mean, look, you have the Department of Justice indicts Eric Adams, mayor of New York, who's been corrupt for a really long time. But I think the message was sent: you get out of line, you start saying that we got a problem with these illegal aliens, and we're going to put you in prison. You lose your membership card in the Communist Party at that point. And the big finale to September was that Hurricane Helene struck the Southeast. I mean, hit Florida, Alabama, Georgia, parts of Tennessee, South Carolina, and then really especially into Western North Carolina, and the devastation there that still remains. And that sort of set us up for what we found out about how FEMA was out of money because they spent all these millions and millions of dollars on illegal aliens. Those people are still living in tents and RVs. They've been completely forgotten by the government at this point. And it's just a stain, again, on us as a country, on the presidential administration that has completely abandoned people. And then you can't help but think, well, if they were in a very blue area, there would be all money thrown at it possible. There's definitely a political angle to this of, we want you to suffer. We're going to try to hurt you, even if it's just by not taking action. So that rounded out September. Let's go into October, because at that point you had Kamala Harris having done well enough in the debate against Donald Trump. There was lots of joy going around. She'd started doing the, I'm going to steal your policies and take credit for them. I'm going to start bribing people with free weed. And it was palatable to the American people. I think, though, that you have to put it on the shoulders of J.D. Vance that he tied a tourniquet on that bleed. And he did so when he went and debated against Tim Awals.
Yeah.
and did so as sort of a happy warrior, right? He didn't go in there angry. He was very respectful. He, again, made himself look palatable, like, oh, he could be a vice president. By the way, he's got a beard. That's kind of cool. So here's just a clip from the debate.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own
leadership. Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process.
He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
All right. So, I mean, I just wanted to show the two clips because that was as most contentious as it got with between the 3-on-1, very clear 3-on-1 debate as it went. He handled it kind of very nonchalantly. He wasn't contentious. I mean, that's as nasty as he got. He just kind of talked over them, but did so in a very respectful way. And then kind of was able to pivot out of one of the biggest accusations against Donald Trump of why he's denied the outcome of the 2020 election. And I think he came off as really like a good, effective communicator, genuinely kind of like a likable guy who's smart, good looking compared to the side by side of Tim Walz, who I don't know what he was doing the whole time, taking notes or grading papers or what was it?
You could see it on his face. You could see the joy evaporating where he's thinking he's smart enough to know that JD Vance has got him by a lot. So he's, because he tries to throw in there, those laws have been on the books since 1990. And then right off the bat, JD Vance, that app hasn't been there since 1990. It's like, oh yeah, because we didn't have smartphones back then. But those clips, I think, really bring home the point we were talking about earlier about these debates got to go away. Because you have Margaret with her holier than thou,
so condescending.
Oh, dude, I wanted to strangle her. Seriously, I did. Because just the way she was speaking, like you said, so condescending, talking down to him as if he doesn't know what he's talking about, and really trying to pull a fast one and say they have legal protection status.
Thank you, Senator, for explaining the law to us. But we've got so much to get to. We want to get off the X on this one because it's been absolutely devastating to us, even in this 1-on-3 situation. All right. This one was huge for like 36 hours. The dock worker strike that never was, which there was the allegation that they're going to bring the entire logistical chain to a stop. And the dock workers were going to leverage the fact that we're heading into a holiday season. There's going to be additional demand and you're not going to have the goods and the prices are going to go through the roof. And the Biden administration completely caved and gave them basically like a 60% raise over the next 6 years. But I think it's a temporary agreement right now. It's supposed to be coming up here in a couple of weeks before the inauguration. But that was in the news. That's all everybody was talking about. And then gone. It got more reporting than Ryan Ruth for an assassination attempt.
It did. It seemed like it was everywhere. And it was the only thing newsworthy at the time.
So I think after you have JD Vance tying the tourniquet, that he stemmed the tide there. And that's when you started to see some more fails coming out from Kamala Harris. And there's the allegations that she plagiarized her book, which was very clear that she actually took things from Wikipedia and put them in the book. I don't think she did that. I think whoever was ghostwriting the book did that because it was just being lazy. They're trying to say that she was a published author for her to run for state attorney general. And that was exposed completely off the board, out of politics, though. And this is probably one of my favorite news stories from 2024 was that SpaceX returned the super heavy booster that they launched back to the launching pad. And I just always feel so good for those nerds. Their reactions are epic. And I just want to give it a play because it makes me smile.
I love this.
Velocity. Oh, we can see it coming down through the plume.
Booster coming in hot for booster catch. We're going to ignite 13 of those Raptor engines, and this view is incredible right now. You can see how fast this vehicle is moving on the left-hand screen. Landing burn 13 ignited. We're now down to 3 Raptor engines. We can see those chopsticks now in the air.
And you had the beautiful Florida sunset going on, or
Oh.
sunrise going on out
I
there,
need to move,
Garrett.
Steve. I need
60
to move.
miles from my house.
The cheering of those people it's infectious because you can, it's not just like they're cheering for the Green Bay Packers or something, you know, which, and people get crazy about that. But you can hear the passion in their cheers about, probably for many of them, years of work that they've put into this, and probably too for many of them very, very technical or minute aspects of the overall project, but all of it coming together in that moment. It's awesome. I also love how you have essentially play-by-play and color announcers on this thing. It reminds me of some obscure Winter Olympic sport that nobody knows, but then you have it on TV and you're like, I don't know the rules here. And so you got the commentary going, explaining every little piece because they know that nobody really understands the sport, and that's what you got here with. I think I heard at least 3 different people speaking while it's coming in. I don't know. Epic. Great.
Is NASA just one of the biggest government wastes at this point? We
Yes,
can
they
just achieve the same thing with SpaceX. And I'm with you on the infectiousness of the reactions to it. There's that story they told us actually at the FBI Academy, and I rolled my eyes because it's so just contrived for an FBI thing. But it applies to the space program. And the story is that they were doing a consultant was walking around NASA when they were in the space race, and they're trying to put a man on the moon. And they were asking people what they were doing, and they find the janitor who's sweeping the floor, and they said, "What are you doing here?" And he goes, "I'm putting the man on the moon," because he recognized that he had a part to play in that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why you get the reaction that you're getting from those people. They were involved in some way, even if it was just putting a little bit of code in there, and the sum of all the parts was actually greater because they were able to achieve that. They returned a booster to Earth. Like, that's
what I was
insane.
just think of what that is. I mean, we live in a truly remarkable time. As bad as the weaponization is, and a lot of the things we can point to and discuss that are bad, quote unquote, and really not even quote unquote, truly they're bad and evil. But at the same time, man, you've got some incredible things happening, and with the technology we have, and in ways that people are using it for good or for the benefit of others. It's really an interesting time to be alive. And I think in a lot of ways you can, in a way, it has revealed, I believe, especially since COVID, it has revealed the true good and evil forces that are at work and fighting against one another. It's what a time, Steve. What a time.
Well, someone who probably can't even sweep the floors at SpaceX, she just doesn't have the chops, is Kamala Harris. And that's when she started to really feel the pressure that she had to answer some questions from some sort of media source that might not be massaging her feet. And she went on Fox News and was confronted with Bret Baier, who's, I mean, he's a journalist. He's completely respectful, but you could tell from her like that this was going to be her slay queen moment. And she apparently had scheduled it for like a 45-minute interview, purposely showed up late, so it was only like 20 minutes. And then at the end, her wranglers, like she's a bear, were trying to pull her off the stage. Want to just give it a play just so everybody can remember how bad this one was for the vice president.
The first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the...
Yes, ma'am. May I finish responding, please? But you have to let me finish,
You had the White...
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we have been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has been designed and implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other.
Literally.
I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you.
I'm telling you that was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy.
Pot calling kettle.
Yeah, it's so bad. It's so bad. And
she just got angry. She did the Anthony Weiner. She had nothing. You don't have the law, you pound the law. If you get the law, if you have the facts, you pound the facts. If you have another, you pound the table.
Well stated, Anthony Weiner. Which, yeah, that's. I won't go down the Anthony Weiner rabbit hole.
That's not attributable to him. That's an old lawyer trick. I guess she does remember that from her.
She must
law school experience where she did not graduate cum laude.
Aside from her, hey, I did. Aside from her, her voice, American? Why does she talk that way? That's not how you actually sound, Kamala. Nobody sounds that way. So why do you talk like that? And
she tried to do the thing that she did against Mike Pence, where, excuse me, I'm speaking. Stop mansplaining to me.
You have to let me finish. No, I don't, because you're trying to not tell the truth. So I'm going to call you on it.
She did it to the two most mild-mannered men ever, Mike Pence and Bret Baier, right? And you contrast that angry pose that she had there, where she was very offended by being, how dare you? And then defaulted to things that she's doing in her administration, going after people who disagree with her and projecting them onto a Donald Trump. And then you contrast that with Donald Trump, who started to do things to make himself look like, again, like not Hitler, just like a regular guy. He's the master troller. And that's why he went to McDonald's, and he did that to troll Kamala Harris, who again was accused of, and we still don't know. She said the accusation that she lied about her work history. I think we can just verify it with a W-2. Did you work for McDonald's? She's repeatedly said she did fries. So Donald Trump put on an apron and did a photo op where he handed out Happy Meals to people from the drive-thru.
This is why he's the best. You know, he probably did this for 10 minutes, and it was a stroke of genius to do that. And then to say, on top of it, something like, I've now worked at McDonald's longer than Kamala Harris has. And he's right, because there's been no substantive proof that she did. Which, again, Steve, and I suppose a lot of this falls to the feet of most politicians. Why would you lie about that?
Trying to be relatable, I guess, and it's inauthentic. It's so weird. We live in a time where a billionaire is the populist choice just because he's authentically a billionaire. He's like, yeah, that's right. I sit on a gold-plated toilet and I fly in my private jet. And people are like, well, at least he owns it. I mean, at least he tells us what he does. And if anything, he puffs that up beyond what it probably is. And we've been to Mar-a-Lago, small portions of it. It's ornate, but I mean, not everything is gold-plated. He probably puffed up how much gold he actually has on the premises.
And how much real gold, too. I think of the jobs I had as a kid. You know what? McDonald's wasn't one of them, Steve. Okay, I mean, who cares? My cousin worked at McDonald's. I remember thinking that was kind of cool, but I didn't. So who cares? I don't get it, man.
And if you remember, after that photo op too, the CDC all of a sudden came out with there's an E. coli breakout at McDonald's, and then they started to talk about price gouging to punish them, and it brought out more weaponization.
Yes, it did.
So
that's how I saw that too. I was like, wait, we're gonna attack McDonald's now?
We talked about it already. Joe Rogan did the interview with Donald Trump. He sat down for the long form. I mean, I listened to about an hour of it. That's about all I could take. I'm just not the biggest fan of listening to Donald Trump, but he came off in that hour, at least, as being a guy who could sit down and have a reasonable discussion. And he ultimately won Rogan's endorsement after that. We had the, again, argument for one of the most underreported news stories. Kerry Pickett reveals that James Comey ordered a honeypot operation inside Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. He sent 2 undercover agents in an off-the-books operation to infiltrate the campaign, engage in sexual activities with campaign members, to dig up dirt. And then when it was uncovered, and it was uncovered because one of the agents was photographed, and the FBI went to the media and said, that's an informant whose life will be in danger if you report it, to spike the story, and then moved that agent over to the CIA so she couldn't be called as a witness, and promoted the other one to the 7th floor. folks, this has been communicated to Kash Patel, and they will be tracked down very early on in a Kash Patel directorship.
They better be. I mean, think of everybody listening. Think of what Steve just laid out, which is the nuts and bolts of this. That is as bad, if not worse, than the types of crap that J. Edgar Hoover was doing to hold on to his power, to subvert our true form of government. And that was happening just a few years ago under James Comey. And I would say continued under Director Wray, and in ways got even more out of control, because in a different way, James Comey actually was involved with things. I don't think Chris Wray really has been. I think he's more like a wetsuit, where James Comey was a little bit more involved, and he's walked free. Him and his Biden-Harris shirt that he posted up on Instagram, or even think of Comey's interference with Hillary's server, and that there's the FBI is even worse than you could imagine. Is really what it boils down to.
James Comey was more active in the weaponization. I think Christopher Wray has at least portrayed himself as being more passive. Like, well, it was allowed to happen under my tenureship. There's no evidence that he was directing it, because he just kind of bubble wrapped himself. Who knows about that? In the closeout of October, we had the human Roomba go on record to spike his replacement from the coup. I think that during his 4.5 minutes of cognitive abilities a day, I think that Joe Biden's really angry at Kamala Harris. And that's why he called half of America garbage. And again, the Trump pivot to this, where within 24 hours, we got him with his own traffic vest and garbage.
250 million people are not garbage. I can tell you who the real garbage is, but we won't say that.
Even as a dream garbage.
It's just so good. So good. I mean, I don't care, man. Say what you want about Trump. You can't look at this. Here, getting off a plane in Green Bay, Wisconsin, not too far from here, but getting off a plane with the garbage man neon vest, and then climbing into a garbage truck with a big Trump 2024 sign on it. Of course, he won the election. You can't beat this.
He's P.T. Barnum. He really is. Or the people around him who came up with that. I mean, I guess we all sort of assume that Trump's coming up with it. That's not true. But he's got people in the room who are coming up with these ideas, and ultimately he's the one who says, yeah, I like that. I'm going to go ahead and do it. And he's not afraid of the image of putting on a vest at this point, right? I mean, maybe 8 years ago he would have said, well, I have to have gold-plated everything. That might be beneath me. I am the boss. I think he's sort of embraced that sort of showmanship at this point.
A McDonald's fry fryer and a garbage man. I mean, within like a week.
We go into November. We have the Saturday Night Live thing that Kamala Harris gets, and NBC screws up so badly with that they have to give free airtime to Donald Trump, which he uses for Sunday Night Football because that's their audience. Peanut the Squirrel got his 15 minutes of fame. I mean, just more evidence of government weaponization, where there's a domesticated squirrel and raccoon who are on some sort of social media website with lots of followers. And a Karen calls up the state of New York, who goes in and euthanizes those animals with a search warrant. So just one last reminder that the government's too big and too powerful, and some sort of effort needs to be made to bring it to heel. And it all culminates with November 5th, where you and I were we were bearish on what was to be expected. Didn't know, but I think a lot of people were very concerned after 2020 about the shenanigans that went on. I think people just didn't go to bed. I really do. I think that when the dumps were going to come in was when they were expecting people to be asleep, and a lot of people stayed awake and they held the line. And on top of that, you had an overwhelming popular vote, which made Donald Trump the winner of the Electoral College and the popular vote, first Republican to achieve that in 20 years.
Crazy.
And there was a reaction from the Trump camp when it became official. So we'll just give that one a play.
Thank you. The Fox News decision desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
The former president's comeback will be complete with a win in Wisconsin, a state that he narrowly lost 4 years ago. He is now the second president in U.S. history to win non-consecutive terms. The first was Grover Cleveland in the late 1800s. Senator J.D. Vance will become the 50th vice president.
So your diminished state there of Wisconsin actually wound up delivering the decisive vote there at the end.
Somehow the demon spawned Tammy Baldwin still won, though, which still, I know I said it at the time, doesn't make sense to me. But yep, we came through, I suppose. Nonetheless, Steve, I still would rather be living in Daytona Beach.
Watching the big giant booster land is fun times. All right, so in after the election, I think things start really ramping up for a transition. So you start getting nominations happening where you have RFK, who could be, he's going to HHS. He could be like a Henry Kissinger as far as like a household name of a cabinet member, which is generally not true. I think Tulsi Gabbard, perhaps the same way. Again, they're yet to be seen if they're confirmed.
Yeah.
But I think that as long as they're siloed into those areas, I don't agree with them politically on very much, but the areas they're in, I'm pretty comfortable with. Jack Smith, special prosecutor, files to dismiss those charges that were uber necessary, right? Because Donald Trump was an insurrectionist.
Yeah.
Dismissing both the classified documents case and the January 6th case. And then you also have the New York judge who delays sentencing on Donald Trump for his hush money convictions until after his administration. We'll see how that shakes out. And then our quarterback, Kash Patel, nominated, or at least it's announced he's going to be nominated to head up the FBI. That is the final one we have for November. Your thoughts on any of those?
Oh man, I mean, really, there's a lot there. Obviously, from a selfish point of view, the Kash Patel being nominated for the FBI, but that good luck to him though. At the same time, because I really do think it's worse. It has gotten so much worse than when we were there, and once you start looking into the nether regions that they really are trying to subvert, part of me thinks it's an extreme uphill battle. But I suppose at the same time, I'm sure he will enjoy the fight ahead of him to try to restore the place, because it's going to be a burden and a monumentous task. Just think of the James Comey subversion we talked about. Whistleblower retaliation is low on the list, in my opinion, of things that they have done wrong over the years, just in recent memory. But that was a good way to close out November. I was in Indiana visiting family down there for Thanksgiving when that was announced, and this timeline that we're on, Steve, you could not have made this stuff up.
My phone blew up when that announcement came out, similar to when the Butler assassination attempt happened. Like that it was at that level. Like my phone was just like hot from the amount of messages that were coming in about it. So I'm bullish on Kash being the director. I've said before, I want the FBI completely eradicated and shattered into 1,000 pieces. The only person though that I'll give the old college try to make the demo into a reno is Kash Patel, because of the quality of the person who he is, as well as his openness to hearing what's going on and reacting to it and pivoting to it. I mean, I shared over the weekend within our chat with him about the firework terrorist that we talked about at our last show, and how they characterize him as a terrorist for 2 years and then got him for a tax stamp with a SWAT team. So we'll go to December, which we're still in. You never know. I mean, like maybe China tries to invade in the next couple of days. Who knows? But I think we're getting towards the end here. I feel pretty comfortable. We have all the big bombshell stories. First is Joe Biden pardons Hunter for everything for like 11 years, including when he was vice president. I wonder why.
Which I love. Just a couple months ago, I don't know, what, September maybe it was, and you had the judge saying, no, that you can't do that plea deal. That's ridiculous. And then Joe Biden just steps in anyways and says, yeah, about that. He's going to be pardoned from any crime that could have happened in, like, I don't know, the last decade. Sure.
He also then went on to pardon 1,500 people in the single biggest pardon in one day in American history, and also pardoned 30 7 people off of death row. They now get life sentences, and we've covered down on that. We had Luigi Mangione assassinating the United Healthcare CEO on camera, and for some reason, he's now the champion of the left because he has abs. Syria fell. Just the Assad regime fell.
Is that a CIA coup? That's kind of what I'm assuming, but I don't know for sure.
I've got a little good ones. Daniel Penny gets acquitted.
Ah, yes.
I had him as Dexter Taylor. The two of them, the two that I perceived to get the Ross deal in 2024. Daniel Penny evades that. Dexter Taylor still sits in prison now because apparently in New York State, according to the judge at least, you have no Second Amendment.
Yep.
Daniel Penny, he went through the ringer for over a year for doing the right thing, and hopefully, please God, get the heck out of New York City.
Yeah, no kidding. It's ceded territory. Everybody get out.
I mean, especially because the downstream consequences of that is another story we have, and that is Daniel Penny did something to protect people on a subway car, whereas the other guy who lets a woman on fire, nobody takes action now.
Yeah.
You deserve it, New York.
Right. Right. This is what you get. And I know people will say, well, I've lived here my whole life. I've got family here. I can't leave. I can't do it. My thought process there is leave the ceded territory, let them destroy each other, and then we'll go back in some years and we'll make it great again.
Christopher Wray announces he's going to resign as the FBI director, sort of setting the stage for Kash Patel to take over, and then have the inside coup against him.
The coup has begun.
Which you really stink your operational security, FBI. We know what you're going to do. Yes. He knows what you're going to do. So
we got the names of people. I mean, good luck. Good luck, our SecD minders, getting out ahead of this one.
All right, the last two. And one of these is really big and it was huge, and then Christmas happened. I guess we all forgot about it. You remember when like there were drones flying all over the place?
Oh yeah, whatever happened to them drones?
When Skynet potentially became self-aware.
Yeah.
They're not foreign. We don't know what they are, but they're definitely not foreign, and they're definitely not government.
Maybe they're hobbyists. Nobody's breaking any laws. Yeah, we don't know what they are, but don't worry about them. Everything's going to be okay.
George Hill, I talked to him on my Patriot show, and he said the only one I can't poke holes in is that it's essentially artificial intelligence that is sentient, and our government let it escape from the lab and doesn't know how to get it back in.
That wouldn't be good. Out of all of the ideas and theories, the one I give the most credence to is that there were some government drones, maybe even DOD, which I don't know. I won't get into all the details, but DOD, DHS, who knows? Maybe one of them looking for something. That's what I think, is that they were scanning for something, which the scanning capabilities of drones these days is pretty incredible. Maybe I'll tell the story some other day about this drone company that I worked with a little bit in Kansas, but essentially they were doing it for farmland, but they were scanning the land, and it was incredible what they could do. And that was a few years ago now. I can only imagine what the DOD or DHS type of drones have the capability to do. That's where I lean. I don't know. Could be wrong. It's just it's mostly conjecture.
All right. And to close out the year and to close out the lawfare that we saw against Donald Trump, we now have learned that Fani Willis, the prosecutor from Fulton County, is to be removed from the Georgia case against the president-elect, and effectively means that case is over. The lawfare is over, and we're looking on to number 47 taking the White House without having that hanging over his head. That's 2024.
2024 in a nutshell. I mean, think about that. We covered the year in 3 hours, essentially. There's a lot there.
And we had to go speed it up to keep it within sort of close to 3 hours.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've reached the end of the stories. We've reached the end of 2024 because administrative note, no show on Tuesday. I got to be out of town, but we'll be back with you Thursday for our first show of 2025. That's when I guess I'll have to start keeping the list of all the bombshell stories to reveal in December of next year. I have a palate cleanse, though, on New Year's resolutions. Garrett did his reading earlier in the show. I encourage anybody who has missed it, go back. He read from 1 Corinthians. Thought it was really appropriate. And this is Ryan George, who talks about the first guy who ever made a New Year's resolution, what it probably looked like.
All right, my man, it's happening. I'm dropping it.
I don't know about that, my man. I'd wait to be in a bathroom.
No, I'm talking about the weight.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I'm finally gonna lose some weight, I decided, starting now. Just before the holidays, that's gonna be extra tough.
Oh, yeah, the holidays.
I mean, Christmas is in a few days. Tons of delicious, fattening food. So yeah, when I said now, I meant immediately after the holidays.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I want to eat all that stuff. Yes, I do.
So like in the new year then?
Yeah, like in the new year, exactly. That makes a ton of sense. January 1st? January 1st.
That is incredible. Don't you have a massive party you're going to on the 31st?
I do. So you're gonna start this fitness journey hungover. That is bold. I am, but you know what? I feel like future me's gonna be able to handle that.
Oh, future you's gonna take care of it.
Yeah, the way I'm seeing it, by January 1st, I'm gonna be like a different person.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, the me I'm envisioning for the new year is like super responsible, so I don't really see that being a problem.
That is amazing, my man.
Probably wake up and have a salad.
So at the stroke of midnight, you're like a new person with none of the bad habits and vices you currently have.
Exactly. Stroke of midnight or whatever time I go to bed. Because again, I will be awake drinking quite heavily.
What can I say? That sounds like the perfect time to start a drastic and long-lasting habit formation.
It just keeps going. I'm a fan of Ryan George. For anybody who knows about it, he does the pitches, the movie pitches. Just a comedian who's pretty talented about that. So hopefully everybody has more success with their New Year's resolutions as we enter 2025. I guess we have an arbitrary day. We got to start it.
That's
Best time
right.
to start is when it's a clean slate.
Yeah.
And don't have Quitters Day, which is the second Friday of January when most people quit their New Year's resolution. All right, guys, final show 2024. And thank you everybody for being along with us for the entire ride of this year. Looking forward to having you back here Thursday, 10:30 Eastern time on Rumble, rumble.com/amradpod. As always, if you haven't already, smash the thumbs up, follow our channel. And guys, have a great New Year's, and we'll see you back here next week.
You've been listening to the voice of the Suspendables on the American Radicals podcast. Follow us on rumble.com/amradpod.